All right, Mr. Chair, the YouTube is live, so feel free to start.
Okay, great. Good morning. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we're meeting on is traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Committee of Adjustment public hearings are now conducted in a hybrid, in-person, and virtual format. Some applicants and participants will make their submissions in person, and others will participate virtually by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform. The meetings are also streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel, and anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone, and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All virtual participants will automatically be muted on entry, and when your item is called, you will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We also ask that you mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time, and at all other times, your video will be disabled, and you will be reinstated as an attendee. For both in-person and virtual participants, Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Those participating through WebEx are not allowed to use a share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. Receiving a copy of the decision of the committee. For people in attendance attending in person today who want to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must fill out a decision request card, and those participating virtually need to submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body, in the event of an appeal, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee here today, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, and in some limited circumstances, to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government amended the Planning Act in November 2022 and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. Only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons and public bodies, as those terms are defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure. The hearing procedure is as follows. We will call the item in the order listed in the agenda after first dispensing with possibly some matters to be deferred. Otherwise, we go in order. In making your submissions where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with the presentation if they desire. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to address the committee. The committee may ask questions of the speaker and take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or their agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. The clock is up on the board, and a staff will comment when you're reaching the 5-minute mark and ask you to wrap up. Any presentations or other materials you wish to submit to the committee must have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot accept materials at the hearing. When addressing the committee, please start off by clearly stating your name and address, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent goes first and makes their presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions made to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the matter if the application is substantially revised in order to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those who are entitled to notice of the application have been informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Generally, we first call on speakers in the hearing room and then those participating via WebEx. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentation. And when all other speakers have finished, the applicant or their agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues and answer those questions that were raised by the speakers, but not to introduce new information at that time. That will then mark the end of the discussion and the application is taken into the committee for a decision. Okay, some housekeeping matters to take care of. Firstly, we have the confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting. Can I have a motion to accept those minutes and just remind me of the date of that hearing?
It was August 31st.
Okay. 2 weeks ago today.
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of those minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Comeric for that motion. Seconder for that motion.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Taylor, thank you very much. All in favor? Okay, the minutes are approved. Any declarations of interest of panel or staff in the items in this morning's time slot? None to declare? Okay. In terms of there's no files to be closed, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
None today, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we have a couple of matters that we're just on the deferral list. We only have one item on the deferral list, item number 14, so we'll deal with that. In addition, we have a transportation request in number 11, and it's a transportation related application, so perhaps we can deal with that. Number 15, Madam Secretary Treasurer, Councillor Amber Morley is asking for a deferral with the most contentious application we certainly have this morning regarding the tree. And I guess there's some issue we can discuss at the time, whether there's a res judicata or I think staff has to take in any application, even if it's very similar to one that's previously been adjudicated. Okay, so should we deal with item number 4? Oh, yes, and I note, Madam Secretary, we have a request on item number 2 from the agent to hold the matter either to the end of the morning session or if not opposed, even possibly later for whatever reason. So are we able to, first of all, accommodate Mr. Creamy's request? I see he isn't the speaker on that matter. I don't know if there's anyone in the room on that matter.
There's no one registered, but is there anyone present in the room for 55 Astoria Avenue? So I don't see anyone, Mr. Chair, so we'll hold that till the end of the morning session. If the applicant is ready, then we can proceed. Otherwise, we can hold it to the afternoon. For item 11, we do have updated comments from Transportation Services that we'll be able to share with you. They're no longer requesting a deferral. So we can do items 14 and 15.
Okay. So on the issue of the deferral, item number 14, can do that one first. The address is 6 WOOLTON CRESCENT. We had it on the deferral memo from staff requesting it for reason 1. And in the additional materials, we now have the the applicant agree also at requesting that deferral. So looks like the speaker, we only have one on this application, is Sergey Zorkin, the agent for the applicant, and he's appearing by WebEx audio. I don't understand.
Good morning, members of the committee. I'm Sergey Zorkin from 6 WOOLTON. I would like to defer my application at this time because I did not have a chance to receive my revised zoning notice yet, so I cannot present it at this stage.
Okay. Members, any questions for the agent on this? It's a request for a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. So I take it when you're ready, you'll get back on the agenda, contact staff, and you'll be put on a next available agenda. Okay, so members, unless there are any questions, can I have a motion to defer for the reasons stated by the agent?
I'll move for deferral to allow for a new application or confirmation of variances.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Palmer. Seconded for that.
Sophia second.
Thank you. Yeah, all in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred. We'll see you again, sir. Have a great day.
Thank you, members. Enjoy. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, now item number 15 is 95 James Street, and this is the application for the second-story addition above the dwelling, and there are 5 variances, and we have a lot of opposition. I think a total I counted of 67 letters. That was before the additional materials when a number of others, and clearly the application, this is all about the tree, the beautiful silver maple in the backyard. That was already the subject of an application that I believe was approved by committee and went to the TLAB and was refused at TLAB. The appeal was allowed and the application was refused. And we'll have to hear from the applicant as well. There's the issue of whether this is, how similar this is to the, how it's different than the other last application and was refused back in 2019. It looks like it was finally refused after, I believe, by the TLAB back in June 2022. 3 years later, perhaps we'll hear more about that. But we do have a lot of opposition and the issue of how is this different than the last application. We didn't have a staff request to defer this, but we do have, I believe, the request by the councillor. And I think the LBNA also was looking for, in both cases, a deferral or a refusal.
And
Chair.
urban forestry.
Yeah, I was
Forestry was
mentioned
asking
that
for
forestry's
deferral.
asked for
Forestry.
deferral.
Yes. Yes. Okay, they've also asked. So we got 3 parties, forestry, LBNA, and the councillor saying defer or refuse. So let's hear first from, on the issue of the deferral, from Addison Milne Price, the agent for the applicant who's appearing in person. We have a number of other people appearing, but let's first deal with the issue of the, if it's being deferred and the purpose of the deferral to see if we're going to proceed with this matter today. So let's hear from Addison Milne Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now is the microphone on? There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Addison Milne Price, planner at Design Plan Services, located at 900 the East Mall, Suite 300. We would like to proceed with this application here today and hear it on its merits.
Okay. And you're prepared to advise as to how this application is different than the one that was presented to committee back in 2019 and was refused by TLAB in June 2022.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there are some significant differences. I'm able to go over them now. I don't know if you'd like to make my presentation.
No, let's just deal with the issue, I guess, of the deferral. Obviously, the other parties are the ones asking for the deferral. And we have, I'm looking right now at the picture of this tree, which is absolutely beautiful. Looks like there's at least nine separate branches coming out of it, huge trunk. Looks like it's really close to the existing rear yard, and any extension, in this case, looking, whether it's an extension or it's just going straight up, we'll hear about that. But we do have the other parties requesting a deferral. Perhaps we only have to hear from, there's a number of speakers, like totally over 70 letters, but in terms of the people present, I think we have about 5 or so.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question of the applicant?
Sure.
I believe the reason that both forestry and the council is requesting deferral is for your client to provide an arborist report. Can you comment on that and why your client does your client not wish to provide an arborist report?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to answer that question. An arborist report is not part of the required materials for a committee of adjustment submission. However, if an injury or removal permit is required from urban forestry, typically an arborist report is required. So we would deal with that matter at that time. But to avoid getting too deep into the application, I will say the intent of this application is to retain the existing tree.
Okay.
Forestry is also asking for the arborist report, I believe. or at least for you to provide a plan for how you're going to preserve the tree. And for that reason, they're asking for the deferral.
That is correct. And for that reason, we would be satisfied with a condition that requires us to provide an arborist report to urban forestry and for them to provide clearance before any building permit is issued.
Okay, so if I'm looking at the councillor's letter, and I guess it's probably pretty similar to the other ones, to allow the applicant or arborist report to develop a suitable tree protection plan to provide urban forestry with the time necessary to conduct a site review, impact study, and submit their comments. So the issue is, exactly, you're saying your clients want to preserve this tree, and I see it's not a rear extension or a, you know, a two-story rear addition, but it's going up. And I assume there's some cantilevering, and it sounds like everyone wants to save this tree. It's a beautiful tree. I was going to say, wow, this tree, how can you build anything? Maybe the city should buy the lot from the applicant. I thought there was some application in the news. I'm not sure if it was this one or some other one where the city was going to talk about they were going to maybe buy the lot. But I guess maybe it's not this one. So that's the issue. The issue is, which one did we do first? You're saying, oh, yeah, we're willing to do that. But the members and the public may not be so accepting of your bona fides to do that, saying, yeah, we'd like to do it, but sorry, we can't, and the tree's going to die. So wouldn't it be reasonable if everyone's on the same side and this application, why don't we defer it? Why are you so opposed to deferring it for a short period in order to try to work in advance? Because there's a lot of people very interested in this tree. You know, it's not just, oh, yeah, we'll worry about it later and we'll try to save it. This is a very important tree. It's the whole nature of this application and the whole nature of the objection. It's all about the tree. So what's the downside to your clients of a few week deferral, especially when the OMB has, the TLAB has refused within less than a year and a half ago, just about a little over a year, what looks to be a very similar application. So the question to me, on behalf of the other speakers we're going to hear from as well, because they're going to say they want a deferral, I'm sure. If we weigh in with all five of them like we normally do. So I just want to hear from you before we hear from them. What's the big damage? What's the big loss other than a few weeks of time? Time is obviously important. Time is money. What's the big problem with that, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There isn't necessarily any additional weight that would be caused by a deferral. And for that reason, if the committee wants to defer, that is understandable. What I would point out, though, is regardless of whatever decision the committee makes, no tree can be issued an injury permit or removal of permit without the clearance from urban forestry.
Okay.
Chair, if I may, to the applicant.
Yeah.
I would suggest you seek confirmation from your client about whether you should proceed or get a deferral. I think it is in everyone's interest for you to complete the arborist report so that everyone can consider a complete application. In the absence of the report at this hearing here, the application may be deemed premature. Your client might not like that, the outcome of that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may respond.
Yes.
I've discussed this with my client. Ideally, we would go ahead with the application today as is, but he has also confirmed with me that a deferral for the purposes of preparing an arborist report is acceptable.
So the applicant has requested not to defer, but the committee can still defer the application for if you so choose.
I thought he just said, Mr. Milne-Price, you just said that you're willing to accept it. And let's clarify, it's not, we keep calling it an arborist report for short, but it's basically a tree protection plan and the city having a chance to review that and that tree protection plan, assuming everyone's on the same side and wants to save this beautiful tree, which unfortunately was planted very close to the house. So, you know, no one's around, it's over 100 years old. So no one can fault anyone for the placement of the tree, but it is in a very precarious spot. So if everyone wants to try to save this tree, and everyone's willing to work diligently to not have this into another, a long delay. And remember, you got to understand the suspicions of the neighbors. You have like many people in the entire Long Branch neighborhood, as well as their designated representatives, the LBNA, very concerned. And so I thought you just said you are willing now to agree to a deferral.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I am willing to agree with a deferral, and my client has confirmed that. Ideally, we would go ahead with the application as is today, because like I said, urban forestry will need to review an arborist report and a tree protection plan. Either way, if a permit to injure a tree is required. However, we are satisfied with deferring the application today to provide the arborist report and tree protection plan in advance.
Okay. Madam Secretary, any questions then from Mr. Moncus? Otherwise, I'll ask the Secretary Treasurer. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 speakers, including 2 from the LBNA, so really only 4 speakers, because we're only here from 1 person at the LBNA. Do we have to go through on the deferral, or can we assume that everyone here would be very happy with the deferral and we don't have to weigh in with, perhaps with, we can hear from Mr. Sandy Donald on behalf of the group, perhaps Mr. Vella, I don't know if we need to, or the LBNA, one of the representatives. Barb, what do you suggest we do?
Sure, why don't we see what Mr. Donald and maybe the neighbors at 93 James, because they would be most affected.
Oh, oops, I missed. Is there other? I didn't see 93 James. Oh, there they are, the Carries. Okay, for sure. So on the issue of the deferral, which I would assume, maybe I'm wrong, that all the neighbors would be very happy with. Mr. Donald, welcome, sir.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Donald has asked to be on video for his presentation, so I'm going to go ahead and bump them to be a panelist now. Sandy, you can go ahead and click the Start Video button. That way it'll engage your video, and I'll go ahead and unmute you. All right, Sandy, you are unmuted.
Okay. Hey, can you hear me?
We can hear you. You have not turned on your
Okay.
video, though, as per your request.
Very definitely, we're supportive of a deferral for a lot of the reasons already stated. There's no arborist report. There's no realistic tree protection. The whole idea of if down the road, this tree is just basically too important to leave stuff down the road on, what happens between, whether it's taken down or everything like that. As the chair has stated, this is the key thing about this hearing is all about the tree. And actually, I believe there were a total of 82 letters of objection. So, by the way, the 82 letters of objections were obtained in roughly 24 hours. There's a huge amount of concern among the Long Branch neighborhood and whatnot. This tree actually is the second largest tree in Long Branch, and it is the largest tree in West Long Branch. So to go ahead with the hearing without them supplying an arborist report, and for that matter, for the city not to, because I believe the application basically indicated there would be no sort of damage, basically wasn't going to be any damage to the tree, therefore it didn't go to forestry and whatnot, and that there's just way too much at stake. I think this has to be deferred. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donald. Yeah, it's 100-year-old tree plus, so a couple of weeks isn't going to shouldn't be considered out of the ordinary. Trying to ensure, because for the notwithstanding they want to, and urban forestry has to sign off, it should be subject to a hearing, and only after we have the tree protection plan and have the experts of the city a chance to review that plan. Okay. Let's just weigh in on the issue of deferral just then, I guess, with the neighbors at 93. Mr. and Mrs. Carey.
Mr. Chair, the speaker will be Beverly Carey. Beverly is asked to be on video, so I'm going to go ahead and make them a panelist. Beverly, you're now considered a panelist. You can go ahead and turn your video on by clicking the Start Video at the bottom of the screen. I'll go ahead and unmute you now. You are unmuted. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm totally in agreement with the deferral. It's fine by
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mrs. Carey. Any questions for Mrs. Carey? Okay, so I don't think we need to weigh in with anyone else unless you want to try to hear from one of the LBNA representatives, either Judy Gibson or Christine Mercado. One of the two. Perhaps Judy Gibson, because it's on the tree canopy committee, and she is also requested to be on video, like the other two, but they haven't actually shown up on video. So,
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as you've mentioned, Judy Gibson has requested to be on video. So, Judy, I've made you a panelist now. You can go ahead and click the Start Video button to engage your video if you'd like, and I'll go ahead and unmute you. You are unmuted, Judy. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you so much. And no, I don't need to be on video. I meant video conference as opposed to in person. So I'm fine with this. Thank you. We appreciate that the applicant is prepared to go for the deferral. We fully support a deferral for this application. We're not opposed to something being built on the site, and we stated that through the 5 days of TLAB hearing. We just want to make sure that what's built preserves the tree. This tree does qualify to be an Ontario official heritage tree. And all it requires is the signature of the owner. All the other work has been done through the heritage approval, through the arborist, and we just require the owner's permission to do it such as that. And it sounds like this owner wants to preserve the tree, so we're hoping that this owner also is willing to sign off on this tree becoming an official heritage tree and working with urban forestry to make sure the tree is preserved. Thank you.
thank you. So in order for it to be a heritage tree, you need to have the owner's consent, and that's the last thing you said what you need to do for this tree to be officially recognized as a heritage tree.
Correct. It's been through the arborist. We have an arborist report stating the health of the tree, and we have the person who assesses the heritage on behalf of Ontario Forestry. Ontario Forests, they've reviewed it and they said it qualifies. All we require is the owner's signature. So it does fall under Municipal Chapter 813 as the potential for a heritage tree. So it has extra protection as a result of that as well. And it just requires the owner's signature to become officially a heritage tree.
Okay, so does the Ontario Forestry or any of those people have any experts who would assist, could assist and give their expertise in terms of what efforts they feel to work collaboratively rather than waiting for a report and then commenting, to try to make sure that everyone's on the same page as to what's required to save the tree? If they have any expertise, perhaps that's something that the parties can look at.
They certainly have expertise. There was an arborist, a very experienced consulting arborist, who was the one, Ian Bruce, who assessed the health of the tree. And yes, for sure, they have other people who have experience with heritage trees that could speak with and we're happy to facilitate that with the owner if they would like to speak to them as well.
Okay, so we have that stated on the record. I think that would certainly be a good idea. Okay, members, any questions of Christine or Judy speaking? Since it's Judy. Any questions of Judy Gibson, or is someone ready, I guess, for a motion to defer?
Yeah, I'll move for deferral to allow for the submission of a tree protection plan.
Okay, thank you, sir. Seconder for Mr. Comerick's motion.
I'll second.
It was Palmer,
That was
not
Palmer
Comerick.
that made the motion.
Oh, sorry. You're doing your Stan Comerick impersonation again. Only kidding. Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Palmer, seconded by Ms. Reddick. All in favor? Okay, the application is deferred. Look forward to hearing this and reviewing that tree protection plan. And obviously, it's a very important tree. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So I guess, are we going to look at... No, we already dealt with item number 11. Or we didn't deal with number 11. or we're going to deal with that as we go through. Barb?
Yes, we have a revised report from Transportation Services.
Oh, right. You said, okay, that they no longer want the deferrals. Right.
Correct.
That's why I crossed it out. Okay. Okay, so I guess in that case, we can start hearing applications. The first one being item number 1, 1611 and 1619, the Queensway. And this is an application to construct a 1-story rear addition and side addition and partial 2nd-story addition to accommodate a proposed vehicle dealership. There are 6 variances. We have a previous decision in 2005. We have the site-specific zoning bylaw, traffic study, applicant's presentation, Mrs. Evangelista. We have an arborist report, and planning is recommending refusal of variance 4, being the side yard setback of the accessory garbage structure. Otherwise, they are okay with the application, so we'll perhaps hear about that. There is only one speaker, Ida Evangelista, agent for the applicant. Good morning, Mrs. Evangelista.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Ida Evangelista on behalf of the owners of 1611 the Queensway.
Okay.
Can I proceed?
Yeah, we will have your presentation up on the board. Why don't you let us know why this application is worthy of support?
Okay, I'm going to, so this is also in conjunction with a site plan application that is currently with staff at this time. They were okay with us proceeding to C of A so that they can continue with their site plan application and continue with the development. So the variances that we have, that you have in front of you, so this is under the old Etobicoke bylaw. And the variances that you have in front of you relate to the northerly portion of the property. So a couple of the comments, planning made a comment in which, you know, I'm quite perplexed because, as I said, this is going through site plan application, and nowhere has it ever come up before about this garbage enclosure. So there is a garbage enclosure at the northeasterly portion of the property, and it's adjacent to the parking spots. We have created now, typically, it's recommended that you put a 3-meter buffer across the front of landscaping. And on the northerly portion, on the east and the west, we have 5.8 meter to a 6.4 meter buffer across the front. Now, this garbage enclosure, with the greatest respect, I don't quite agree with the planning comments. This is an auto dealership, right? So there is not going to be food. If this was a restaurant, it'd be a very different situation. So the garbage enclosure here, it's for the retaining wall, because obviously it's going to be quite a nice feature wall. And as you saw from the plans and also my submission, you saw what we're proposing. We're proposing a dealership. It's going to be the new Genesis Hyundai flagship dealership. So a great deal of time and money and effort has been put into this project. So this enclosure here is being placed at the best area because it's away from people, pedestrians walking. It's mainly used for cardboard, paper products, and that's it. And it's a private pickup.
Ida, you keep
You keep
fading
fading
away.
in and out.
Oh, I do. My apologies. Is that better? Is that
I can
better?
hear you.
Okay. So that is what we're proposing at the front. It is a feature wall, and that feature wall is to maintain the bin on the interior. And it will be fully landscaped all around for, you know, presence. Now we are asking for a 2-story. It does state that we are only permitted for 1 story, but if you refer to my page 6 of my submission, you'll see what I've done is I've included the building section, and I've also included the floor plan. It's for a very small mezzanine area for offices. It's within the existing footprint. We're not changing the footprint. We are adding two very small additions on the east side and the southeast side. So this mezzanine level is within the existing footprint of the building. So and again, you know, across the front, it is very well landscaping. It's very pedestrian friendly, which is the intent of the OP for employment areas, you know, to the integration from retail employment to the street. We are on Queensway. So it is a development that will be very, very complementary to the neighborhood. The service area at the back. Now let's talk about parking. So there is a service area at the back of the building, which will accommodate, you know, any service cars for this project. Now, the new model.
Ida, sorry, can I interrupt just for a minute here? You're almost done here. You've got about 30 seconds left. The staff doesn't seem to have an issue with the built form of the main building. It's the garbage enclosure that they have the issue with, the setback on the garbage enclosure. And you haven't spoken to that at all. And I think that's where my concern is with this 0.7 meter setback. I don't know if the other panel members, that's where their concerns are, but you haven't spoken to that at all. So I'd like to hear about that. We appreciate the main building is what it is. It's very nice and high architecture. But staff had a concern with the setback, the east side yard setback. And if you've heard me at these committee meetings, I have an issue with side yard setback variances because you have to maintain a side yard for maintenance. How are you going to get in there with about 2.5 feet? So that's what I'd like to hear about. I'm not sure if the other panel members agree, but if you could speak to that, and we'll give you some additional time, I imagine. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, what I made reference to was that garbage enclosure, that side yard setback. That is to the feature wall of the setback of the feature wall that is basically going to encapsulate where the garbage bin is. There are, if you noticed, the two shaded areas in front of the bin with the opening and the enclosure. That is to open up and remove the bins. The bins that will be held in this enclosure is strictly for cardboard paper products. It's not that there will be a large truck that will be entering. It's a very small area. We have the setback is strictly, again, just to the feature wall, just to create more of a space and symmetry. We do have, if you notice, there is landscaping all around the parking structures and the garbage area. You'll see it's highlighted in yellow on the very easterly portion. The side of there does maintain some space between the feature wall and the lot line. There will be room. This is not, staff is under the impression that, you know, odors will penetrate into the neighboring property. This is a dealership. We will not be dealing with any food products in this particular situation. It will be, and the two spaces, the space in front of that enclosure will allow for the collection agency to come and pick up garbage easily. There was no communication planning. We did go through site plan. They did state in their memorandum dated June that the outdoor garbage should be enclosed and screened with wider planting area. And that's exactly what we've done. We've enclosed it. We've put a feature wall around it. The feature wall around this garbage enclosure is what is creating that setback. And we have put plant materials all around it. So we have complied to the comments, and that's why I'm somewhat perplexed with the latest comments that planning have made. So I hope I've addressed your question.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Evangelista.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a variance requested to allow the garbage enclosure in that area, which I don't think we have an issue with per se. It's more the the side yard setback, which I don't think you've addressed at all. So I don't have an issue with the garbage enclosure in the landscaped area, which it's not supposed to have parking or landscaping or structures in there, just landscaping. So I don't have an issue with that. It's with the side yard setback and how you're going to maintain that. So that's what my issue is. I'd like to hear from other panel members.
Okay, Mr. Palmer, I believe Mrs. Evangeline has addressed it. She addressed it before you asked your question when she started talking, and then she addressed it again. If we can zoom in on that area, that's just an enclosure. I assume that has doors and they open up, and the staff, on garbage day, when the private contractor comes to pick up the garbage, they open those doors, they wheel out whatever bins, just like in a condominium, many condominiums, and they pick it up in the machine and they empty it and they put it back. Have we have any complaint from the adjacent neighbor at 1607, Mrs. Evangelista? Do we know their position? They seem to be the only party affected by this.
Through you, Mr. Chair? No. We have reached out to the neighboring properties and no one has any concerns with it. As I mentioned, because this is a dealership, we're not dealing with the restaurant. It's all dry refuse. The next door neighbor is actually quite happy that this development is taking place.
Oh, for sure. It's going to increase their property value to have a nice, beautiful dealership rather than an old lazy boy store next door. Now, here's my question. My question is, if you look at the variance, you're saying that in previous iteration through site plan, they never had a problem. They just sprung this on you in the September 5th memo.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, they did. They did ask for, in their memorandum, which I just recently shared with staff, they do state that it should be enclosed and screened with wider planting area. And this is the area where it was felt that it was away from everybody. It was away from the building and the safest place to have this particular refuse area.
Okay, I was going to just...
Providing it has a feature wall around it, which we did.
Okay, so my question was going to be, you just answered my question. Where was staff proposing this be, although they just wanted this 12-meter side yard setback for the, remember, it's not the building setback, it's for the garbage enclosure, which is what I imagine is either a wooden or some kind of a structure that they open the doors and they wheel in the bins. And again, it's not food bins, it's not grease, it's garbage that would be generated by a dealership.
That is correct, which is basically boxes for parts that are being delivered and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm just wondering where else would they want the garbage enclosure to be? Right at the street? It's tucked in the rear corner. Anyway, that's my comment. Any other questions for Mrs. Evangelista? Or is someone ready for a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to, I think, clarify the issue as to the way that I understand it. If you look at the east side of that site, it maintains a 2.6 meter landscaping strip. That 2.6 meter landscaping strip is impinged upon by that garbage bin, at which point it creates a pinch point to only 0.7 of a meter. I think if, in my understanding of this, is if they were able to maintain that 2.6 meters right through, including from the garbage bin, there wouldn't be an issue. I mean, that's the way I'm seeing it.
Oh, right. So actually that leads to a good question, Mrs. Evangelista. What if you look at that section there, that pinch point, he's correct. If you continue to what would be the hardship? They lose one extra parking spot if you ran that green strip all the way through, or at least back where the yellow portion is, where the green hits, and then just push the bin over one spot or two spots and lose one or two parking spots. That's the competing way of complying, saying, oh, community planning wants this, let's give it to them if it doesn't cost us too much, even though we don't think has your client looked at potentially extending that green strip and just pushing it over to the left and maybe losing one or two extra parking spots?
They were looking at one spot, and I guess we're getting into site plan control.
Yeah. No, I'm saying, yeah, though, that's the whole issue here. community planning is in favor of the application other than variance number 4. So that's what we're dealing with, is variance number 4. So in order to please staff, Mrs. Evangelista, couldn't your client just push it over a little bit to the left and lose maybe one spot, or even reconfigure it so it's a little deeper? Well, the question is how, if it has to be the right size for the bins to fit. So the extra depth may not help. So can you comment on that?
So from the very beginning, January 2023, these plans were submitted to planning, site plan, urban design, transportation. So everybody has taken a look at it. It was determined and found that this is the best area for this, this refuse area. We could make it smaller, but I don't believe that that would be, you know, I respectfully submit that I don't believe that urban design would appreciate that. They want that landscape buffer around it as it is now. They don't want it to be, because it is going to be a feature wall surrounding this refuse area. It's, you know, they do want it for characteristics, presence, optics, placed where it is, because that way then it's on the side. There's you know, plant materials that can go around it. We have gone through many you know, different scenarios, and that scenario is the best. And that's why, as I started off with this presentation, I'm perplexed at the comment that was made, because we've worked with Justpreet, and Justpreet did not mention at any time at all any concern with that variance. It is 0.7. Again, it is to the feature wall. We can make the feature wall a little narrower. There will be plant materials all along that side. The neighboring property has no concerns with what we are proposing. We also then have to deal with, you know, moving into parking spaces, and then, you know, not satisfy transportation. So it's, as you can understand, we've been at this, we're in September, we started in January. So we've actually plotted everything very strategically, and it's very sensitive and to how urban design would like to see it.
Okay, yeah, that's obviously, this is a memo from planning, but there are other parties, as you mentioned, who have all weighed in and been working on this since January without any question of the, to me, it just seems the most appropriate place to put it. The issue is, and what's the benefit of pushing it over that little extra strip? Is it going to, the next door neighbor's not concerned, that's the only one affected by this. Anyway, any other questions? Can someone weigh in with a motion, please?
Can we, is there anyone present in the room for 1611 and 1619, the Queensway? Okay, so we can proceed with a motion.
Okay.
Just for a discussion item, to Mr. Kamarik's point, I think variance 4, if we reduced it to from 0.7 to 2.6, I'd be fine with everything. So
2.6 is that?
That to match the landscape strip
match
immediately to the south.
So you don't create a 2-foot garbage trap.
Yeah.
So you're just going to even it out with that green strip.
And you can't shift it over, because one of the variances requested is for number of parking spots. So you can't you can't remove any of the parking spots without affecting another variance. So I would say just reduce the size of the garbage bin and the side yard setback to 2.6 from the requested 0.7. So I would recommend approval with that variance number 4 with the revision to that, saying that the requested variances meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act. It doesn't look like there's any other conditions requested from any of the agencies or departments. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Can I just one mention of what if we you also revised variance number 2 to provide a total of 47 parking spaces, or just, if, you know, you need to
No,
have
we
a proper
can't,
size.
you can't reduce the number of
can't do
parking
that?
spaces. We'd need further
Okay,
notice.
the notice issue, right? Okay. Okay, so that's Mr. Palmer's motion. Do we have a seconder for that motion?
I'll second that motion. I mean, that doesn't prevent the bin from changing the shape of the bin. So that, anyway, I'll second the motion.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, I'm opposed to the, I would have let it go as it is, but I guess I'm in favor because, anyway, I'm in favor. Okay, motion carries, it's unanimous. The application is approved with the revision to variance number 4 from 0.7 to 2.5, you said, Mr. Palmer?
2.6.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Evangelista. And we can move on to item number 3 since we're holding item number 2 from Mr. Creamy.
And Mr. Chair, I'd like to
Item number
quickly
3.
confirm that Mr. Creamy is not on the call just yet still, so.
Okay, thank you. Item number 3 is 194 Scott Road, and it's an application to construct a new detached garage in the rear yard with only one variance. And we only have, all we have is a comment from Metrolinx, nothing else on file. Marco Vieira is the agent for the applicant.
Good morning,
Appearing
Mr. Chair.
by X Audio. Good morning, sir.
And members of the committee, my name is Marco Vieira. I'm the agent and the designer. I'm at 257 Dunraven Drive. It is a pretty straightforward application. Don't know if you require any explanation on the proposed variance.
Okay, no, I certainly don't. Members, any questions, or can someone weigh in with a motion? Unless anyone has any questions for Mr. Vieira.
Just, I have a note here. I'm assuming that the 50% landscaping is being provided in the backyard.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. We are at 51.2, about 52. We actually reduced the driveway at the entrance to the garage in order to maintain the landscaped area.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
On that note, I find the application to meet the 4 test and would like to move approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kamarick. Second for that motion.
Just a question first. So are we deleting variance 4?
That's the last, this is next application only is the one variance.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong application.
Yeah.
I will second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor? It's unanimous. You got your approval. Thank you, Mr. Vieira. Have a good day. Okay, the next application is item number 4, 4 Leamington Avenue. And this is an application to construct a 1-story east side addition and a 2nd-story addition above the existing dwelling. Again, there is only one variance, the FSI. And we have no conditions from ravines, and otherwise we have nothing whatsoever on file other than Urban Forestry is looking for condition number 1. The speaker on this application is Chris Fudala, the owner, appearing in person.
Good morning.
Good
My
morning,
name is Chris Fudala for 4 Leamington Avenue. The reason I'm here is I want to build a 2nd story, but the lot is small, so and the existing footprint is already 1,700 square feet. That leaves me with 900 square feet to create 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, which is impossible. So that's why we're here to propose this new story at 3,500 square feet.
Okay, thank you, sir. Members, any questions for Mr. Fudala on this application? There is only the one single variance for the FSI. And Urban Forestry looking for condition number 1.
Is there anyone present in the room for Leamington Avenue? There's no one, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Mr. Chair, I'm satisfied the variance requested meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval subject to urban forestry condition 1.
Okay, thank you. Seconder for that?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? The application unanimously approved. You have your variances, sir.
Thank
Have
you
a
very
wonderful
much.
day.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Okay. The next application is 69 Guthrie Avenue. We have a revised highlighted application showing changes made to the application. This is for a detached dwelling with an attached garage, a new rear deck, and an in-ground swimming pool. Urban Forestry looking for conditions 1 and 2. There were 11 variances initially. There are now 8, and 4 of those have been revised. We have the revised agenda, plans and zoning waiver. We have 2 cover letters, one from the owner and one submission for revisions. And we have supporting materials, a planning justification. Planning is requesting condition of approval for a 1.5 privacy screen on the northern side size of the rear yard platform. There are 5 letters of support. There's some kind of a letter about a right-of-way, which we, I think, need to discuss. And with respect to 67 Guthrie. So that's what we have. And the speaker is Addison Milne Price, back up again.
Mr. Chair, before we go there, can we please clarify planning's initial or preferred suggestion is refusal, and the privacy screen is an alternative.
Oh, okay. Did I miss that? Hold on. Oh, yes. Okay, right. They recommended refuse, but should we approve, they want screening. Okay. Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Comeric. Okay, so Mr. Milne Price, you're the only speaker. Is there any other speakers in the room on this application?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so you're the only speaker. So if you can give us a presentation to counter community planning's position. And again, it looks like your position was on the previous iteration with 11 variances. Perhaps these changes were made, we're going to hear, to satisfy planning. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sorry, forgot the microphone again. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to confirm that all of the variances have been revised accurately before we begin.
Okay.
Variance 1 for lot coverage should read 37.72%. Variance 2 for floor space index should be 1.05. Variance 3, variance 4 are both unchanged. Variance 5 for building length should read as 17.70. The variance for building height and main wall height are both unchanged. And the variance for rear platform size, one of the platforms has been reduced to 9.92 meters squared.
So yeah, one of them is just 1.1 of a meter over. The other has been changed from 9.92 from 13.72. And variances 9, 10, 11 have been eliminated.
That is correct.
Okay, did those come about as a request of planning's position? And is planning now and you're satisfied with these changes?
Those changes did come about as a result of planning's position. However, planning has reviewed these changes and the report is issued with reference to the plan that's in front of you, and they're still requesting refusal.
Oh, okay. Because it looks to me like their report was based on, they've attached the original 11 variances to the report. So you're saying they're still not happy with what you've done?
Yes, Mr. Chair. On page 4 of the staff reports, staff acknowledged the revisions.
Oh, okay. But they didn't show them on the... Right. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so staff is still not happy. Did they advise you what they still weren't happy with?
Yes, their main issue is with the floor space index. And as I explained in the justification materials submitted, the reason for the FSI compared to the remaining variances is because of the basement floor, which is located closer to the established grade as compared to the first floor, and that counts the basement to be the ground floor. Because of the design decision, the GFA of the basement is therefore then included, and it pushes the FSI up to 1.05. Were it not included, the FSI would be 0.7 approximately, which is in line with other approvals on the street.
Right, so that's usually what they point out in the report, and they say that it's occasioned due to the basement. That's why, so they feel the basement is too far. Like, this is a new build, right? So the issue is they're concerned that the basement shouldn't be that high. So in other words, not just saying, oh, sorry, it counts because of the topography of the site. Here they're saying, I guess, they don't want the basement to count.
Yes, it's true. They didn't comment on the basement level. I'm not sure if that point was appreciated by planning. I did my best to communicate that to them prior to the hearing. They did mention the building height as well as an issue, but I would point out that it is well in line with heights that are existing in the neighborhood and similarly along Guthrie. Although it's true that there is no building along Guthrie that is 10 meters high, there is a 9.8 meter building along Guthrie, and just to the north along Winniska Avenue, there is a zone that permits heights up to 12 meters. That is just 50 meters from the subject property for reference.
Okay, and they seem to be okay with this consent to, go over the right-of-way form by 0.007 meters. So I guess we're okay with that. So the issue is then, planning normally points that out in their memo. What you just told us is what the GFA would be without the basement sticking out. Here, I would have expected them to say, well, what you're telling us, well, the basement counts, but it sounds like if they're opposed to that, you pulled it out of the ground on sort of that you could have left it less than 50% sticking out. But let's see if the other members have any questions for you on that point or any other point. Members, questions for Mr. Milne-Price?
I have a question. Just want to clarify the site plan that's provided. What are the red lines supposed to be indicating?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. The red lines are the as-of-right building envelope.
Okay, so you're saying that, okay. I was trying to understand what that was because it wasn't labeled. Thank you.
Okay, and you do have 5 letters of support, so the neighbors, no one in the area seems to be concerned with this.
Yes, Mr. Chair. That includes both adjacent neighbors.
Yeah, and I guess the issue is they're fearful of this being used as a precedent to provide a one times plus coverage, or FSI. So sort of understand where they're coming from as well. Okay, any remaining questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
Yeah, I'm still a little confused. So you're saying that you could build as of right to the rear yard setback without triggering a coverage issue, a site coverage issue or variance?
Through you, Mr. Chair, allow me to clarify. The red lines are only for the setback as of right.
Okay, so it's not really as of right building envelope.
Of course, it would be quite difficult to prepare a completely accurate as of right envelope, considering the different configurations that a lot coverage permission would allow or disallow.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. And we don't have we have support from both adjacent neighbors, I believe, correct? With 5 letters of support. We have 67 and 71, both on the list. Okay, any other questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
I'm prepared to support this application. I find that it meets the 4 tests, and I'd make it subject to the planning conditions and also forestry 1 and 2.
Okay. So the owner should provide a 1.5 meters privacy screen. That's the planning condition you're mentioning.
Correct.
Okay. Seconded for Ms. Ruddick's motion. Mr.
I'll
Taylor?
second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay. All in favor? It's unanimous. You have your approval. Thank you, Mr. Neil Price. And we can move to the next application, which is item number 6, 65 EILEEN Avenue. It's an application to construct a new detached garage in the rear yard. We have 3 variances. We have a cover letter, planning conditions of approval, forestry, and Metrolinx. And the additional materials, the applicants has a response to forestry comments. Eddie Perez is the agent, and he claims given approval in April to remove the tree due to poor condition. So let's hear from Mr. Perez on that issue.
Hello, good afternoon, Chairman and community members. My name is Eddie Perez. I'm here on behalf of the owner. As per that comment, the tree thing was taken care of before I got started doing these drawings. The owner had called the city because the tree was in poor condition. They went on site and they deemed it to be in poor condition. And they said it's Norway maple. The tree position was number 20. And they said that the tree is to be taken down. And I also sent a picture in showing the old, orange painted on the trees, indicating that's the case. And I also talked to Max Dita yesterday, and he just said once I get the final and binding to proceed, maybe we have to get an additional permit to injure the tree, but he said we would take care of that after the next step.
Okay. And Mr. Perez, you're okay with the 2 proposed conditions by city planning?
Yeah, I'm okay with them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions for Mr. Perez? Okay, if no questions for Mr. Perez, is someone ready for a motion?
Yeah, I'm good with the motion. I believe the application meets the 4 tests. I'd like to move approval subject to the 2 planning conditions, and I think in the end, subject to forestry condition 1, just to be safe on that city tree.
Okay. Seconder for Mr. Comerick's motion. Mr.
I'll second
Taylor?
that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, let's do one more and then we can perhaps take our morning break. Item number 7, 121 Edgecroft Road, an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage with 6 variances. We have presentation materials from Mrs. Evangelista, and we have Urban Forestry requesting a refusal. We have their memo. They want a refusal of variance number 1, the coverage. Okay, so let's hear from Mrs. Evangelista. Welcome back.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Ida Evangelista on behalf of the owners of 121 Edgecroft Road.
Okay, let's just see. Are there any speakers in the room wish to speak to this matter? 121 Edgecroft?
There are not, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so you're the only speaker, Mrs. Evangelista. So the issue is, I guess, to deal with the forestry memo.
Okay.
Just application. You can get your application on the board.
I will address that. The forestry memorandum relates to the tree on the boulevard. That's the tree that's actually showing on the boulevard. We have no intention, there's no intention to remove this tree. It's a city tree. We're preserving the tree. We're creating a TPZ around it. If you've had the opportunity to review the arborist report and the tree protection plan, you'll see that it does state that. We submitted that quite some time ago. But let's talk about the coverage and why we have a 36% coverage. So in this area, the house itself is approximately 15 meters in length. The coverage relates to the wine cellar at the back. If you see the blue highlighted area, that's a wine cellar outside, underneath the rear porch. So, but if you look at the actual rear elevation, you'll see that the rear porch is at grade, right? So when you're looking at if you're standing outside of this home, you will not see like a protrusion of a deck and then the cellar underneath. So that wine cellar is all underground, which is indiscernible. You will not even know that it's there. But because it is an excavated portion, it does go to coverage. And that's why we have the 36% coverage. However, if we remove that, we have a 30% coverage for this home. So for forestry's comments, one, the tree is remaining, we're not destroying it. And two, the coverage for the house itself is only 30%. 36 relates to that wine cellar. This also contributes to the length and the depth of the house. Again, because of the wine cellar. However, the house itself, as you can see from the drawing, the house itself is only 16 meters in length. Actually 16.15.
You keep fading away. Could you speak directly into your device?
Sure, my apologies. We have a side exterior main wall height of 7.34. This particular house is a gutterless system. So that 7.34 takes you to the top of the parapet where the gutters are hidden. If you, on the next page of my submission, you'll see that it shows you exactly where where the height of the main wall takes you. However, to the top of plane, we are below the 7 meters. And we do have a rear second story balcony of 9.7 square meters. There is the trees that are in the rear of this property will be maintained, will create privacy. We do not have any opposition from the neighboring properties relating to this particular home that we are proposing. And that being said, I maintain that this is a appropriate and desirable development for this neighborhood. And I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Evangelista? Interesting. So there's nothing at grade that counts for coverage, even though it's below ground.
Correct. If you look at the rear elevation, you'll see that you walk out from the main floor and you walk out the wine cellar. The wine cellar, they are wine connoisseurs, and it is excavated.
Can you keep focused on where you're speaking? Because it's really hard to hear. You fade a lot during your presentation.
Oh, not sure why. Is that better?
Yeah, I haven't really heard. Maybe it's not loud enough in the room. I haven't noticed anything other than a slight fade out. But anyway, I think you're more or less done. I apologize. I forgot to mention the additional materials. We do have an arborist report and a tree protection plan. That was in the additional materials, which is, I guess, very important. Any other questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
Yeah, sorry, question, Ms. Evangelista. So the variances for length and depth really only apply to the basement, is that correct?
For you, Mr. Chair? Yes, that is correct.
So if we were going to approve this, if we tied those variances to the basement only, your client would be okay with that?
Yes, to tying like the floor plan, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
I think you'd have to tie it to more than just the basement floor plan, though, right?
You could
Site
tie it
plan.
to all the plans as it relates to length and depth.
Perfect. Because the site plan wouldn't do it either, so, okay. I feel emotion coming on. Okay, based on that discussion, I'd like to move approval, subject to forestry condition 1 and tied to the drawings as submitted, whatever the date is, with respect to building length and depth, or as it relates to building length and depth.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Seconded from Mr.
Wait,
Merrick's
sorry.
motion.
Is there anyone present in the room for 121 Edgecroft Road?
We already
Okay.
asked.
Sorry, didn't remember that.
No problem. I remembered once to ask.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Palmer. All in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mrs. Evangelista. Have a wonderful afternoon. Okay, so it is now almost 11 o'clock. How about we take our morning break to 11:15?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That'd be great.
We'll come back and complete the morning session. Okay, 11:15. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, real smooth. Webex is running nice, very nice. That's good too. That's good. I like how you guys. All right, Mr. Chair, I think the members are all in here, and I think we're ready to start. Ready when you are, Mr. Chair.
Okay, welcome back. Our next application is item number 8, 3100 and 3200 Bloor Street West and 4 to 8 Montgomery Road. And we have a separate bookmark for this one because there were very large plans. Is there anyone, first of all, we have the speakers on this application are Cam Smith or Gavin Bailey from Tridel, as well as we have the neighbor from 28 Meadowcrest Road, also a board member of TOCA, registered to speak. Is there anyone else in the room scheduled to speak on this matter?
Mr. Chair, I can confirm the area resident is present on the call at this time, and there is no one in the chambers that wants to speak to it.
Can I ask, which applications are you here for? You're together, and then? We are here for 9. 9? But agents? Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is an application to permit a parking deficiency that will accommodate a new 16-story mixed-use building. There are 4 variances. We have a site-specific zoning bylaw. We have a cover letter from Tridel regarding the parking supply assessment. We have an applicant's presentation, opposition from Suite 301 to 3085 Bloor Street West. And we have separate plans and a bookmark because they were very large plans. So it looks like the speaker is in person. I don't know if we'll find out if it's Mr. Bailey or Mr. Smith. And we also have, I guess, Ingrid Van Vert on the line or in person?
Mr. Chair, on the line.
Okay, great. Okay, welcome, sir. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Cam Smith. As you mentioned, I'm here with my colleague Gavin Bailey from Tridel, owners of the subject site. Also, just in attendance to note is our transportation consultant, Kyle Jong from BA Group. Are we able to put the slides up from the presentation? Perfect. So just to provide a brief overview, this is the subject site. It's at the northwest corner of Bloor Street and Montgomery. It's a former auto dealership and its associated parking lot, as well as 3 single-family homes on Montgomery. Just to note that it is bisected by the Line 2 TTC tracks, which you can see in this image. Next slide, please. Just to provide some context, this is the architect's current rendering of the project. So this is situated, we're on the south side of Bloor, looking northwest towards the subject site. Next slide, please. So an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for the subject site were passed in August of 2022 through the OLT. We're currently working through the site plan process with the city, and this is the current site plan. So it's a 16-story building that is stepped to the north down to 4 stories. It's 345 residential units. What we're here seeking today is 4 variances, 3 of which are to reduce the overall parking supply. Currently, we're required to provide 417 parking spaces. That's the minimum. We are here to request that be reduced to 339 parking spaces. That's a difference of 78 parking spaces. The last variance is to request a percentage of substandard parking spaces relative to the bylaw dimension widths. Next slide, please. We believe the reduction in parking is appropriate given the site's robust transit network. We're within 350 meters of Royal York subway station, 600 meters of Islington subway station. Of course, both of these stations also have several surface level transit routes operating out of their respective stations. We're also within the MTSA boundaries of both Islington and Royal York. Also, just to note, related to the reduction, we believe the reduction is more consistent with the new development standards for parking in the City of Toronto and Council's direction on parking maximums. Next slide, please. The fourth and final variance being requested is for a percentage of substandard parking spaces. That's 5%, which would be 17 total spaces to be substandard relative to the obstructed parking bylaw width requirement. What you're looking at here is a vehicle maneuvering diagram as an example, which demonstrates that these spaces can appropriately accommodate vehicles maneuvering in and out of these spaces and appropriate door opening and closing clearances, despite be considered substandard to the obstructed parking space dimension widths. So it's in our opinion that these four variances meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, are desirable for the use of land, and are minor in nature. I'll just note that we've spoken with transportation and planning staff, neither of which who have expressed any concerns. And I know that transportation staff have also provided their comments to the committee in advance of this meeting. Thanks for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. I just want to point out in my introduction, I stopped halfway through. We also have transportation memo with they're okay with this. We have urban forestry ravines, has no conditions or no concerns. And the TTC had issued a letter, but then retracted it because this matter, whatever they were going to deal with is going to be dealt with just through site plan. So that's a full indication of what we have here. Any questions, members, for the speaker on this application?
I have a couple of questions, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
One is just sort of personal clarification. The portion of the lot that's north of the TTC tracks, what's happening to that part of the, is that being dedicated or?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, a large portion of the site is below the stable top of bank.
That's what I thought.
And will be naturalized and then dedicated to the TRCA, and that includes the entirety of the lands north of the tracks.
Okay, because I just wondered why you couldn't utilize that for parking, because it's currently being used for parking. And my second question on the substandard spots, are they going to be labeled for small car only, or are they just going to be considered general parking?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mr. Chair, they will not be labeled small parking. They're just for regular parking. What our transportation consultant has examined and proven is that they can accommodate a substantial proportion of the vehicle population while providing appropriate door opening and closing clearances, despite being substandard to the obstructed space bylaw. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a question. Variance 3, no retail parking spaces provided. How do you anticipate accommodating retail customers?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mr. Chair. There is, I think, important to note, I believe over 1,800 spaces of surface level and retail parking within 500 meters of the site, which we believe appropriately accommodates the retail usage on the site. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have another speaker, so if there's no further questions for the applicant, let's hear from Ingrid Van Vert from 28 Meadowcrest, also a board member of TOCA. So first thing I want to know, Ingrid, is whether you're appearing on your own behalf or on behalf of TOCA or both this morning.
Oh, hi. Thank you. I've just been unmuted. I'm appearing on behalf of TOCA, and I also have authority and have been requested by the Kingsway Ratepayers Association to draw your attention to the letter they have filed.
Correct. We have, in the additional materials, we received some support, and we received an opposition letter from the Kingsway Ratepayers group, Kingsway's Park. So the members have seen that letter. Okay, so why don't you give us your submissions?
Okay, thank you.
as a member of Thompson Orchard Community Association, I participated in the Ontario Land Tribunal hearing that led to the negotiated settlement on the development that's in question, and the bylaw that Tridel or the developer is seeking to vary. Those were pretty intense negotiations, and but anyway, I'll leave that. I have two grounds on which I believe the application should be rejected in part. Those grounds, the first ground is simply the scope of it. Tridel or the developer is seeking a reduction of 100% of retail and 63% of visitor parking. And to me, those are not minor variances. Those are very substantial variances for their purpose. And I do not believe that falls within the Committee of Adjustment. Having said that, I also have a significant policy ground for objecting to what the developer is trying to do. And it can be summed up as such. In one sentence, the developer is attempting to keep a lot of parking spots for itself while diminishing all of the parking spots that are available for the public. The developer is taking the position that you don't need a lot of parking at this building, and therefore it should be allowed to vary the settlement it entered into last year, because there's transit and because there's close by parking lots. Nonetheless, what it's seeking is 320 parking units to sell, or parking spots to sell, for 345 condominium units. It's seeking an almost 1-to-1. There will only be 25 units that don't have a parking spot, but it's instead of reducing the number of parking spots that are available to sell, it is seeking to eliminate all retail units and greatly reduce the visitor units. So basically, the developer is attempting to keep as many units as possible to itself while shifting the cost of the reduction in the number of parking spots to the public. So what it's saying is the elderly, the disabled, young families with children, they can walk from adjacent parking or nearby parking spots rather than being able to park underground, so that it has more spots to sell. My submission would be with respect to variance number 2 and variance number 3, which are the visitor variance and the retail variance, that those should be rejected. If the developer wishes to reduce the number of parking spots, that seems appropriate given the city's direction that there is no minimum requirement for parking spots in most condominiums now. It's also in keeping with what its own consultant has said, which is that this building is close to transit. So a lot of the owners of these units can get to transit. Why shouldn't those variations, visitor and retail, be left alone if the developer seeks to reduce the number of overall parking spots, reduce the number that are available to sell, rather than transferring the problem of parking onto the public? And I think the policy reason is that it's very difficult for the disabled or the elderly to walk to the retail from parking lots. We've heard the submission that there are 1,800 parking spots within 500 meters, and they are listed in the BA Group's report. I Googled each of those parking spots or parking lots, and there's only 103 spots that are less than a 5-minute walk. The rest are closer to 10 to 12-minute walk away from this building. So what will happen if the developer is permitted to keep all of these units or parking spots for itself to sell, is that there will be a lot of additional parking on already crowded neighborhood streets, which will be additionally crowded by the imposition of bike lanes. So my submission, I realize I'm running out of time, is that variance number 2 and number 3 should be rejected. The overall number of parking spots can be reduced, but not at the expense of the public. I also ask that the 17 spots that are going to be smaller should not be visitor spots or retail spots, but spots that are sold. And those are my submissions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Van Vert, for your submission. I guess you're aware of the community that City Transportation Department, a 3-page memo has no issue with this, but I appreciate your concerns. Members, any questions for Ms. Van Vert on this, on her presentation? No questions for Ms. Van Vert. Okay, if none, we'll go back to the applicant for a rebuttal.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I would just say that if this were a new development in the city, the retail and visitor parking would be as outlined in this variance. So the new ratio we've used for visitor is 2 plus 0.05 spaces per unit, which is what would be consistent with if this were a new development application, and same with zero retail, that being the requirement. The last point I'll just make related to the obstructed parking spaces is that the reason we're requesting this variance is because we've recently gone through the site plan stage where we're looking at the structural aspects of the building, appropriate air shafts, things like that need to be accommodated. And that's the reason for that aspect of the variance as well. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, so you're saying that if this application was only being commenced today as opposed to when you first brought this application forward, the parking standards have been changed and this would be in compliance. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. So if this were a new application, the parking ratios we've used for visitor and retail parking would be consistent with what we've provided in this variance.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions for either of the two speakers, or is someone ready to have a discussion and weigh in with a motion?
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Chair. With regards to the visitor parking, how many of those will be handicap spots or accessible parking spaces? Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, my name is Gavin Bailey with Tridel. We're required to provide the minimum amount of required accessible parking spaces. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but we have to provide.
Well, I know there's a ratio, but do you know what the number is?
Off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I can't. Maybe Kyle, do you know what the number is? Two. So we're required to provide 2, and that's what we will provide.
Okay, any other questions?
So 2 of the 19 essentially will be fully accessible, so that means you have 17 regular visitor spots.
That's correct.
Okay. For how many residents?
345 units.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Just to repeat a comment you made regarding Transportation Services Division and the fact that they have no opposition to this proposal. I would just make the point that we are very dependent upon and very much trust our Transportation Services Division comments and recommendations on transportation-related applications like this. So I'm quite satisfied that this application is appropriate, meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval without conditions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconded for Mr. Taylor's motion. Mr. Palmer? All in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Smith, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Van Vert, as well. Okay. We can move on to our next application then, which is item number 948 Mattice Avenue. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 4 variances. Urban Forestry looking for conditions 1 and 2. We have an arborist site plan, previous decision from January 2022, which is a refusal on a consent to sever. We have an arborist report, a support petition signed by close by in residence 47, 46, 41, and 36. And concern from 67 Brennan regarding the overall height. The speaker, we have two, David Eagleman for the applicant, and Janet De Leon at 46 Mattis next door.
Mr. Chair, I can confirm the area resident is present on the call at this time.
Okay, and is there anyone else in the room who wishes to speak to this application?
There is not, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's hear from Mr. Eagleman.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. I will provide a brief presentation just to address the one neighbor who has expressed some concerns. And I will just start off to note that we have submitted a revised set of plans as well as a revised zoning notice. And that has resulted in a revised floor space index / gross floor area variance. So just for the record, the variance has been revised to 135 square meters plus 42% for a total gross floor area of 424.58 square meters. And before getting into the variances, I would like to note that we have consulted with planning staff regarding this application, and the revision regarding the floor space index variance was a result of those discussions and was to planning staff's satisfaction. I have reviewed the memo from Urban Forestry, and we are acceptable to both the standard forestry conditions number 1 and 2. And as Mr. Chair, you have noted, we have obtained 4 signatures in support of the application. I won't go through all the variances just for the sake of time in detail, but I'll briefly note that there have been a number of approvals similar to the proposed GFA / FSI that is within this application. The proposed side yard setbacks are only for the total aggregate setback. The actual setbacks are compliant with the minimum requirement of 1.5 meters on both sides. It's just the aggregate of those that we are getting a variance to. And the setbacks actually increase towards the rear of the dwelling on both sides, such that we are actually, if you take the widest points at the rear of the dwelling, the total aggregate setback is actually 7.44 meters. So it exceeds the minimum requirement, the minimum aggregate requirement by quite a substantial degree. And in regards to the proposed building height, which to my understanding is the only variance of concern to the neighbor at the rear at 67 Brennan, the height is an increase of 85 centimeters over what is permitted as of right. And because of the way the dwelling has been designed and what I've discussed regarding the setbacks and how they increase towards the rear, the massing of the new dwelling will be set back well over the minimum required side yard setbacks towards the rear, because we are exceeding the minimum requirements for both the 1.5 meter setback and the aggregate setback towards the rear. And a portion of the east side of the dwelling at the rear is also only 1 story. So approximately half of the back of the dwelling, where the dwelling would be perceived from the neighbor's backyard at 67 Brennan, will only be 1 story and will be compliant with the maximum permitted height. Additionally, the maximum permitted height for a sloped roof dwelling in this neighborhood is 9.5 meters. I understand this is a flat roof dwelling, but the proposed height will still be 2.15 meters lower than the as of right permitted peak height of a sloped roof in this neighborhood. So there will still be over a 2 meter differential between the proposed flat roof house and the highest point of a sloped roof dwelling. that is permitted as of right in this neighborhood. The grade of the subject property also slopes slightly upwards towards the rear, and as a result of that, the dwelling will actually be perceived to be at an even lower height at the rear of the dwelling as compared to what the variance is for. And lastly, the variance related to the architectural, the variance related to the parapet is just for a small architectural feature on the front main wall, and it is a very minor variance. So I'm of the opinion that this proposal fits in with both the existing and planned context, meets the 4 test under Section 45(1) of the Planning Act, and is good planning. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chair, you're muted.
Okay, if anyone have any questions for Mr. Eagleman? If not, we'll hear from the neighbor. Okay, Janet DeLeon at 46 Mattice. Mattice.
Living at 46 Mattice Avenue. So it's actually on the east side of this dwelling that they're going to be.
Sorry, can you just start off, ma'am, by stating your name and address?
Oh, sorry. My name is Janet De Leon. I live at 46 Mattice Avenue. It's on the east side of this dwelling that they're constructing. Now, I'm also concerned about the height, and well, you already discussed that. I just hope that the height will be on the standard that it's supposed to be. And also the concern that I have, and I would like to ask if there's a window on the east side of the house.
Okay, so ma'am, you have to give us all your submissions, anything you want to say is supposed to getting answers, and then Mr. Eagleman will respond to your concerns. So is that all you want to say, or we're going to get an answer and then have other issues or other things you want to?
Yeah, sorry. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll let Mr. Eagleman respond to that. Does anyone have any questions first for the neighbor? Okay, so we'll let Mr. Eagleman respond to Ms. DeLeon's issue.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So through you, Mr. Chair, I did address the height. So I understand the neighbor is looking for an as of right flat roof height in this situation, but I did address the increase in height that's being requested. It is only 85 centimeters over what is permitted as of right. Again, there will still be a 2-meter differential between the peak of this house and what would be permitted as of right for the peak of a sloped roof in this neighborhood. Again, the dwelling is quite substantially set back, especially towards the rear. And to answer the neighbor's question, there are windows on the east side. However, there are no variants pertaining to those windows. And again, those windows are towards the rear. And in total, there are 4 windows on the east side, and 2 of those windows will be set back substantially from the east side lot line. So I believe that addresses the concerns from the neighbor at 46 Mattice, and I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, any remaining questions either for Mr. Eagleman or the neighbor, Ms. DeLeon, or is someone ready for a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'm satisfied the variances meet the 4 tests. I'm pleased that the agent pointed out the potential impact had this been a pitched roof. I think the impact of a flat roof is much less dramatic and impactful on the neighbors. I would move approval subject to an amendment to variance 1, the final sentence in that variance, which would now read, The new dwelling, including the attached garage, will have a gross floor area of 135 meters squared plus 42% of the lot area, and then in brackets, 424.58 meters squared. My motion again would be to approve subject to urban forestry conditions 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor, for that motion. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Mr. Palmer, thank you.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, any comment? Okay, all in favor? Okay, opposed? Stan, are you opposed?
No, I'm just trying to understand the change that was put forward, but I'm fine.
Okay, so you have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Eagleman, and thank you, Ms. DeLeon.
Thank you.
Okay, our next application is 58 Great Oak Drive. It's for a second story east side addition. There are 2 variances, length and depth. There's 7 letters of support, and we have nothing else on file. Speaker on this application is Michelle Sangregorio, the owner of the property.
Yes, hello, I'm here.
Okay, it says Michelle, but on the
yeah, my birth certificate
email it says Michael.
It's not Michelle, it's Michele. That's what my birth certificate reads, but I go by Michael. It's fine.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so very straightforward application, only 2 variances. You've done your homework, you have lots of support. No one else has weighed in. Anything you'd like to advise the committee members?
No.
Okay, we'll just see if they have any questions for you, sir. Any questions for the homeowner, or is someone ready for a motion?
If there's no questions, I'm prepared to make a motion. Find this meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act and move for approval. And I don't believe there are any conditions.
Okay, thank you. Second for Ms. Reddick's motion.
I'll second that, Stan.
Okay, all in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next application is item number, okay, we have 11 and 12 together, but I guess we're gonna do them separately. They're with the same applicant, same sort of, but there is a difference in that. 450 Evans Avenue is to permit parking deficiencies. And we have 2 variances. They're transportation related. We have a previous decision from April 13, 2023. We have photos and a cover letter, as well as Metrolinx advisory. And transportation had been requesting a deferral. They have now provided, I understand from staff, with conditions of approval. So perhaps we can deal with that. Mrs. Bartosik?
Yes, we're about to share the revised memo from transportation.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, the agent has requested to be on video, so I've gone ahead and made them a participant. Joe, you're now a participant, so you can go ahead and click the Start Video button at the bottom center of your screen to engage your video. And I noticed you have unmuted yourself, so I'll go ahead and move you over there so you can be on video.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, this is Evans Avenue. Joseph Plutino.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, before we move forward, could just make a comment. I believe there's a typographical error in variance number 2. The second line is saying a total of 162 parking spaces will be required. I believe that should be provided.
Yes, we will fix that.
Okay. Thank you for catching that, sir. Okay, let's hear from Mr. Plutino.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman, thank you to the committee for hearing me out. I realize that you have a very busy docket. We do have a favorable report from staff, and you do have my planning opinion dated September 7th, 2023, indicating that the variances we're requesting meet the 4 tests and are minor, as they do not cause any adverse impact on our neighbors that is not otherwise contemplated by the bylaw. I just wanted to point out briefly that we've been working diligently for the last 2 years on the city identified priority employment project. And our traffic engineers and the city's engineers have contemplated the driveway specifically, and we are being directed by transportation staff to obtain the variance and widen the driveway just for safety purposes, getting cars on and off the property in an efficient manner. And with that, this application, actually, these variances support site plan approval, conditional approval that we've received from the municipality, and I would ask that the committee consider that, making its decision. And my professional opinion that, in fact, it is worthy of a favorable decision today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Plutino. I just want to apologize. I was mentioning this application, next one are related. I was thinking of items 20 and 21 later this afternoon, not your application, so I apologize. Members, any questions for the agent, or is someone ready for a motion?
Sorry, no questions for the agent, but can we see the transportation comments that were just received? I saw the comment on variance 2, but not on variance 1, and that's where they originally had their comments on variance 1.
And then the conclusion on the next page, I guess.
It's transportation that's actually recommending the variance.
So if we scroll down a little bit on the report.
Conclusion.
Adam, can you scroll down?
Sorry, they're not asking for any conditions then?
Correct.
Just saying they're recommending.
Oh, that's, they say the conclusion. It's the end. I thought it was going to be a conclusion more written, but it just says, from transportation perspective, recommend the committee accept the minor variances application.
Okay, that's pretty clear. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other questions from Mr. Plutino, or someone ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion. I'll move for approval for the variances requested. They're minor in nature and meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act. No conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer.
I'll
Seconder
second
for that. Thank
I'll
you, Mr.
second that.
Mark. All in favor? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Plutino. You have your application has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our next application is item number 12. It's 125 the Kingsway. It's to permit, it's to construct a new detached garage with a covered porch. There are 2 variances. Lot coverage, which includes the covered porch, and a soft landscaping in the rear yard. We have a revised site plan, which do not change the variances, and I think that's all we have on this. And this agent is Addison Milne Price in person.
Good. There we go. Good
Welcome
morning.
back.
Thank you. Addison Milne Price, planner at Design Plan Services, located at 900 the East Mall, Suite 300.
Okay. Don't think we need a presentation on this. Anything you'd like to let the committee members know, or to see if they have any questions?
No, I'm ready to answer any questions.
I have one question, if I may, Mr. Chair. The application is for a new garage. Your site plan is indicating an existing garage. Can you clarify that, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. The existing garage matches the footprint of the new garage that is being proposed, if that explains why there's an existing garage on that survey.
Are we waiting for something to come up on the board survey?
Mr. Chair, we are. We just have a bit of delay with the presenter's computer.
Okay.
Yes, please.
And Mr. Chair, it's on the way still. We're just having a few more problems yet. There's some lag for some reason.
Just while we're waiting, can I just ask for confirmation? I would presume that the existing situation already exceeds the lot coverage required by the bylaw?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is
You're
correct.
just replacing a garage the same size and adding a porch.
That's correct. Although I'll point out the existing garage is a 2-car garage. The new garage will have a portion dedicated only to a covered porch, but that portion is included in the lot coverage.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'm satisfied that the variances requested meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval without conditions.
Okay, thank you. Seconded for Mr. Taylor's motion. Mr. Palmer? Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Price. You have your approval.
Thank you. Have an excellent day.
Okay, you too. Okay, our next application, I guess, is item number 13. 14 Park Boulevard, Inc. Sorry, 14 Park Boulevard. It's conduct interior alterations to the existing building in order to add 2 more units to the existing structure. There are 5 variances. It looks like there's a total 2 more units for a total of what I saw there. Planning, in any event, we have a site photos supporting OMB decision from June 21, 2000. We have a presentation materials. It's a conversion from 4. Yeah, we're going from 4 to 6 units. They're a total of 4 now going to 6. Planning has a recommending refusal or has 2 conditions of approval if it is approved. So this is for 2 more units, and Urban Forestry is looking for condition number 2. In the additional materials received yesterday, we have support as well as a clarification on the name of the address of someone who wrote in a letter of opposition, Mr. Sherlock. And as well, we have a petition with 6 signatures on it. Okay, that's what we have. And the speaker, why don't you tell me, can we find out who the speaker is? I seem to have misplaced my sheet. Hold on.
Mr. Chair, the speaker is Graham Barrett.
Mr. Chair, just
Graham
again,
Barrett. Welcome, Mr. Barrett.
I believe planning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Graham Barrett, SGL Planning and Design, 1547 Bloor Street West, agent for the owner, 14 Park Boulevard.
Okay, welcome, Mr. Barrett.
Thank you. I have read the staff report and would like to proceed today. That's okay with you.
Okay. Well,
Our
they're
client's fine with the-
they're recommending refusal, so please explain to the committee why this application is worthy of support with the 2 conditions instead.
Gladly. They're recommending refusal on the grounds that they think this should be a zoning bylaw amendment, but I'm going to proceed to the presentation for the minor variance application because we feel it's appropriate. So I have presentation materials. If those could be put up on screen, I would appreciate it. It's a proposal for interior alterations to the existing building. I'm going to actually wait a moment till my presentation materials are up, if that's okay.
Sure.
The timer could be paused. I'd appreciate that very much. There we go. That's it. So on the first page, you can go back a bit, please.
There we go.
Thank you. You may need to zoom out there. Okay, so thank you very much. So this is a proposal for interior alterations, the existing building to add two-bedroom basement units with walkouts for a total of 6 two-bedroom rental units. Next slide, please. Other than the basement walkouts on the west side of the dwelling, shown at the top of the slide, there are no exterior changes proposed. You can see the walkouts there. If you continue to the next slide, you'll note the subject site is surrounded by a mix of single detached dwellings, multi-unit buildings, 3-story apartment buildings to the north. And if you go to the next slide, you can see the adjacent building to the east at 1631st Street, because in the same zone, appears to be a 5 to 6 unit residential building based on the number of doorbells and mail slots. A development proposal for the lands to the south to construct 5 new buildings ranging from 12 to 30 stories has also been submitted to the city. As you noted, the subject property was before the OMB under a previous owner in the year 2000, where an application for a fourplex was permitted. The OMB took into account the surrounding land uses and a large 12-meter boulevard in the front. You can go to the next slide, please. You'll see that highlighted. I estimate this to be about 230 square meters in area. Next slide, please, where you can see the survey highlighted. A little further down, you'll see the boulevard I'm talking about. Anyhow, I will continue. The OMB decision notes that the owner at the time attempted to purchase this land from the city, but they had refused. And this would have provided the minimum frontage required for the fourplex, as well as adding lot area, landscaping, and space for parking to today's application had that been permitted. So when the current owners took possession of the property in February 2022, there were 2 units present in the basement and only the front one was occupied. This unit was vacated 3 months after the current owners took possession, and both have remained vacant since. There's a small laundry area in the front that is to be maintained for use by the tenants. The next slide, please. Subject site's located in neighborhood's land use designation. The OP notes that Toronto's neighborhoods contain a full range of residential uses within lower scale buildings, and that physical changes to established neighborhoods must be sensitive, gradual, and fit the existing physical character, a phrase we've all heard many times, but no physical changes other than basement walkouts, which will be well screened from the street, are proposed. Seems I don't have a presentation anymore, so I will just continue verbally. Subject site zoned residential multiple. 5 variances are required to permit this proposal. The first 2 deal with the use and number of units. On the zoning map, the zone label U is 4. An apartment building is only permitted in an RM zone where the zone label U is greater than 5. So with that U number, 4 units is the maximum permitted. And as I mentioned, there were more than 4 units existing on the subject site when the current owner purchased it. Their intention here is to reintroduce these 2 units with improvements. There's also a variance for landscaping to permit 39.7% of the lot to be maintained as landscaping, where 50% is required. Existing landscaping is 36.22%, so this is an improvement. Substantial areas at the rear of the subject site around the existing driveway and garage are currently gravel. These will be replaced with grass as shown in green, if you can see my presentation. Keep going. There you go. That's where I'm at right now. Thank you very much. So the areas to be replaced with grass are in green, and a new walkway area will be installed with permeable pavers as shown in blue. The proposed basement walkouts are shown in red on your screen. And soft landscaping, while not a variance, is being improved from 44.25% to 60.93%, which is an increase of about 55 square meters of soft landscaping. I also think it's important to note that most of that 12-meter deep boulevard that I mentioned is soft landscaping, and while it may not technically be part of the property, it functions as such and is likely to continue to do so, as noted in the OMB decision from the year 2000. Variance 4 is to permit a strip of soft landscaping of 0.41 meters in width abutting another residential lot where 1.5 meters is required. This is an existing condition. The 0.41 meter strip is where the garage is located. Landscaping conditions are being improved along this side of the dwelling, and a landscape strip between 1.22 meters and 1.52 meters in width is being provided between the proposed basement entrances and the west property line. The width of this strip varies along the property line. and a landscaping strip ranging from 1.04 meters to 1.52 meters exists along the east side lot line as well. Variance 5 is to permit no visitor parking spaces where 2 are required. I'm hoping due to some technical difficulties, you'll let me wrap up. I can be brief. This is an existing condition. There are no visitor parking spaces at the moment. Transportation Services notes that there appears to be no opportunity to provide additional parking on site, given the retention of the existing building, and that the deficiency can be considered minor in nature. So we appreciate those comments. There are no changes to the exterior of the proposed building beyond the 2 basement walkouts and improvements to landscaping. The impacts are negligible. The proposal is essentially a continuation of the use that existed for some time under previous ownership, only now it will be done legally and safely. A total of 7 neighbors have expressed their support in writing. You mentioned the one who had written in to clarify their address. They're actually in support as well. I'm of the opinion this passes the 4 tests. It will not result in any changes that are visible from the street or any uses that are substantially different from existing or surrounding uses. The variances are minor. This will introduce 2 much needed 2-bedroom units, and as such represents good planning and is in the public interest. Happy to answer some of the issues raised in the staff report or answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. Just want to weigh in with my comment before to hear if anyone else has any others. It seems there's a bit of a dichotomy here between the planning position that to convert the basement going from 4 to 6 units, you know, is a technical thing that it's, you know, it's not minor because it'll be a different apart building type. But you've shown that there are other multiples next door by the number of doorbells. And I think you're trumped by the fact that the city wants more affordable housing, and here you're providing 2 large 2-bedroom units. I was just reviewing the plan. They're not substandard. They're 2 large units with kitchens and bedrooms and added badly needed housing stock. So I think when you weigh the 2 issues, I come out in the favor of that this is providing badly needed middle housing the city needs. Members, any questions or comments for Mr. Barrett, or is someone ready for a motion? And I assume, Mr. Barrett, you're okay with the 2 suggested community planning conditions in the event of an approval? You're okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, members, questions or comments, please?
A couple of comments, I guess, if I may. You know, on kind of a little bit torn on this one because it's the issue of precedent setting, and that, you know, we are now allowing up to 4 units within a single family dwelling. We used to be a single family dwelling. This one is going beyond that to 6. Given the neighborhood that it's in, it's probably appropriate. We also come back to a parking issue here. I don't know if, can I still just ask the applicant how many parking spots are going to be provided?
Sure, absolutely. Let me just pull up the site plan to confirm here. There is a very long driveway that extends along the entire side of the property, as you can see. There's an accessible parking space being provided in the existing garage at the rear. There's room for additional parking back there. It's also important to note that that large boulevard in front of the property, if you take a look at my presentation materials on the first page, you can see a photo taken not too long ago of the subject site. And there is existing parking on the existing asphalt driveway there. Now, it's obviously not considered as parking on the site because it's not part of the property, but there is parking there that doesn't impede access to the rear of the subject site. And it's highly unlikely that that boulevard is going to go anywhere based on that very large city tree there and the fact that there isn't much else that can be done with that portion.
Okay, but essentially you've got a long driveway where you can stack a lot of cars, but in terms of independent free flow spots, you probably have about 3.
Yeah, I think that would be a safe assumption. Yeah.
No, it would only be 1 in the garage.
In the garage, because the other 2 are actually on city property. So technically, okay. And there's no permit parking in this neighborhood, on-street overnight permit parking. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. It's the never-ending problem with Etobicoke. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, what Mr. Kamarick just had to say, I just want to draw some distinction here. You're right, any single family home is now allowed 4 units, but I don't think that's a precedent setting for this, because this thing has already been, since 2000, it's been a fourplex, so it's a special animal, already a fourplex by right. 23 years ago, it was a fourplex, and now to go from 4 to 6 is different from any house in the city saying, well, now I'd be going to use this decision as a precedent to say I want 6 units in my single family house. This is not a single family. This is a legal fourplex at this point. So that was, I would just have to say on that point, to assist Mr. Barrett with his comment to with respect to Mr. Kamarick's comment. This is not going to be used as a precedent to go from any house in the city or in Etobicoke from 4 to 6. Okay. Any other comments or questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'll make a motion. Yeah, I'm not concerned about this as a precedent-setting application. As you pointed out, Mr. Chair, there's already a fourplex there. This is adding 2 very much needed family units in Etobicoke, and they're nice-sized 2-bedroom apartments, and I think it's all in all a laudable application. Laudable, in case you thought I said awful. I'm happy to move approval subject to the community planning conditions and urban forestry condition 2.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for that motion. Ms. Reddick?
Go ahead.
Okay, put your hand up. Ms. Reddick put her hand up first. Seconded by Ms. Reddick. All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. The application is approved. Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrett. Okay, so 14 and 15 have both been deferred, so it'll take us to our last application of the morning, item number 16, 801 the Queensway. It's an application to legalize and maintain a 10-story mixed-use building containing 206 dwelling units and 2 levels of underground parking that is currently under construction. There are 3 variances, and we have a site-specific zoning bylaw stop work order in order to comply. 2 cover letters, one from Marlin Spring, the developer, and one from Bousfields. An arborist report. We have photos, an applicant's presentation, and planning has given us a report for information. Okay, and having said all that, there is one speaker, Ryan Doherty from Bousfields, who's appearing on WebEx video. Is there anyone else in the room who wishes to speak to 801 the Queensway?
The room is empty, Mr. Chair.
Okay, okay.
Morning, Mr. Chair,
So, Mr. Doherty.
Morning, or good afternoon.
Go ahead, sir.
Oh, yeah, so my name is Ryan Doherty. I'm a land use planner with Bousfields, address 3 Church Street.
Okay, so you got a stop work order on this due to these 3 variances that appear before us here.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we do have your cover letters and your client's cover letter, as well as the photos and your presentation. If you want to just walk through it as well, planning has given us a report for information that they're supportive of this. So just, there's anything like you'd like to add to what's before us already, feel free to do so.
Sure. Yeah, maybe I'll just give a brief overview. I won't take too long. Okay. Maybe we could just go to the second page on this presentation. Yeah, by way of background, there was a rezoning application approved on this site in 2022 to allow for development of a 10-story mixed-use building. And so the site is governed by site-specific bylaw 998, 2022. Currently, my client, Marlin Spring, is going through the site plan approval process. Below grade construction has begun on the building. And through the SPA and building permit process, Toronto Building has flagged 3 variances in the site-specific bylaw. And these variances are entirely technical in nature. They primarily consist of differences in interpretation within the bylaw, as well as technical errors that were missed during the drafting of the bylaw between myself and community planning back in 2022. So this application does not propose any changes to the mix of uses or expansions to the building envelope. It's essentially just to make sure that the interpretation that Toronto Buildings has aligns with what we're ultimately proposing. So just to give a summary of the variances, the first one, variance number 1, is to increase the allowable size of the mechanical penthouse area or gross floor area from 120 to 159 square meters. And as shown here, on the left is Schedule B of the site-specific bylaw, and on the right is our current SPA drawings. And just showing that, the size of the mechanical penthouse has fundamentally not changed. It complies with the setbacks set out on Schedule B. It's largely to do with the various deductions that are allowed in the bylaw for gross floor area and a difference in interpretation between our client's architect and Toronto Buildings. To go to the next variance, which
actually, it's only meter. Why don't we just go to variance number 3? That seems to be the one that's larger. May be some interpretation issue there.
Yes,
I don't think
I'm
about a half meter. Half meter on that height. I don't know if anyone else seems pretty minor. So let's just hear about the item number 3.
Sure, no problem, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Okay.
So the variance for the required minimum separation distance between the main walls is also to correct a technical error in the bylaw. So the intent of the bylaw was to always secure a minimum distance of 19.5 meters between the 2 wings of the building. So the building is U-shaped, as shown here. So that 19.5 meters was secured between the 2 areas labeled HT17. And so despite that 19.5 meter dimension being illustrated on Schedule B, this number was also carried forward in the text of the bylaw under Section 4E as a general provision. So when you read it, it says, the separation distance between main walls is 19.5 meters. It does not specify between the 2 areas shown on Schedule B. However, there are other areas of the building, and I've highlighted them with the red circles, particularly at those interior corners where the separation distance is as low as 3.5 meters. So the restriction of 19.5 was never intended to apply to these areas, hence why there's no dimension shown on Schedule B. However, because of the general nature of the provision in the bylaw, it is in non-compliance. So that's the background with respect to why we're asking for this variance. I'll note for the committee that there's no facing windows in these locations. And as noted in the city staff report, our client is happy to work through any privacy mitigations as part of their site plan control application.
Okay.
So,
yeah, these variances being technical, so I'm surprised you got a stop recorder on this. Anyway.
Yeah, I unfortunately I can't speak too much to that.
Yeah.
I know my client is dealing with that, but
yeah, at least I guess you got here pretty quickly. It's dated August 1st and 3rd, and we're only early. It's only a month, so at least you got here quickly.
Yes.
Members, any questions for the agent, Mr. Doherty, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Yeah, I'm good to go with the motion. I believe the variances meet the 4 tests and are desirable for the development of the site. I'd like to therefore move approval without any conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Komarek. Seconded for Mr. Komarek's motion. Mr. Taylor, thank you.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Good luck with the project. Okay, that concludes the morning session.
Mr. Chair,
It is now 12.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
that does not conclude the morning session. We have to go back to item number 2.
Oh, right. Item number 2. Is Mr. Creamy available? He mentioned something he may have to extend into the afternoon if there's no one present. And I assume there's no one present to speak to this application. We asked that at 9:30. I assume that's still the case. So is Mr. Creamy there?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the agent is present on the call.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So yes, we'll go back to item number 2, 55 Astoria.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members, and C of A staff.
Hey,
Thank you for the
you want to just hang on, Mr. Creamy? Hold on. Let me just do a quick introduction. This is to construct a new detached garage in the rear yard, a second-story addition above the existing dwelling, and to enclose the existing front porch. We have a revised plans with no change to the variance. We have photos of the existing dwelling. We have a presentation email to planning. Planning has 2 conditions of approval. One is to refuse variance 4 for rear landscaping, and then a condition of approval, bird-friendly, a couple of other things dealing with tying into the length and depth, and the bird-friendly window treatment and dark sky compliant exterior lighting condition, which we've seen before for on these 7 variances. And in additional materials, we just had the request to hold it, right? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Creamy.
Oh, good
You're the
afternoon.
only speaker. Yeah.
Good afternoon. And I wanted to just thank the committee and staff for the accommodation with the scheduling conflict that I had. Before you is an application in its essence to enclose the front porch and to construct a rear detached garage. What I thought would have been helpful for the committee is a visual representation of structures, both prior to the current building permit that is actually approved and construction is in place on this property, and the structures that were there before demolition. So as you see in front of you now, the structures highlighted in green was what was natively on the property prior to demolition. So you can see an enclosed front porch, which was done so illegally, in a 1-story building with a rear addition, along with 2 detached ancillary structures with essentially formed one. I don't have a count on square meters for those structures, but you can see they're sizable. And then if staff could go to the next page of the presentation, please. So on this page, you'll see the structures highlighted in blue are what were approved as of right with the building permit reference in the bottom left hand of the drawing. And what you'll see highlighted in orange is what the essence of this application before you is. And then the biggest point I wanted to make here is that, as you can see, structures from previous highlighted in green to structures highlighted in blue are essentially occupying the same footprint with the addition of the rear deck on the new plans. In terms of the rear detached ancillary structures, the rear attached garage, what's being proposed is actually smaller than what's been natively present on the site to this point. So speaking, and what I tried to discuss with planning with regards to the soft yard landscaping is essentially an existing condition. I don't do so lightly, nor am I trying to stretch the truth, but as you can see with the material before you, it is the case with this application. We always try and do our best to provide as much soft landscaping within the rear to mitigate essentially runoff water. And what we proposed was to replace a portion of the new driveway, the apron, to extend over to replace that impermeable pavers. So in essence, we'll have full soft yard landscaping within the rear yard, with the exception of the driveway to access the garage, which again is existing. I think at this time it's a wholesome review, and I want to open it to the committee if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Creamy, for that, and for the color coding is very helpful. Members, any questions?
Just a question with regards to the front landscaping. You currently have a parking pad in addition to the driveway. Is that being proposed to be maintained, I guess?
Correct, sir. And you know what? One thing that I maybe should alluded to, and I think you're all sensitive to the real estate market at recent years, and these are relatively young, new owners who purchased the property a little bit ignorantly. Modern day buying, you don't really have the same luxuries as you had in the past with maybe title search or doing a building code review. So they kind of had to put a firm offer on it, and then found the things related to the illegal enclosed front porch, the dilapidated structures, because the enclosed front porch and the rear addition and the garages were all dilapidated. So in consult with the building inspector, they all had to come down. And that's, again, the impetus for this application is to rebuild them, which triggered variances. So sorry I missed that out, but at least now it's a wholesome picture. But yes, through you, Mr. Chair, Member Komorik, it would like to be maintained. It was a selling feature of the house.
Yeah, there's an existing curb cut there too.
Okay, Mr. Creamy, so I take it that in terms of the staff report, you're not in favor of variance number 4 to eliminate the rear yard scoff landscaping, the 34%. You've explained your permeable pavers and you've done the best you can for this young couple. But okay, the other conditions are okay with the night sky and bird friendly and the tying it to the length and depth, the building length and front yard setback. You're okay with those other conditions, correct?
I'd ask for the committee's consideration on the bird treatment. I'll be completely honest. It's going to unnaturally inflate the cost on the rear glazing of the project. Privacy screening.
Well, Sal, you're on you're backing onto not onto backyards, but onto I don't know if it's a park or what's back there. The sway, it's green space or
no. So sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, the front, so the north end of the property, which would be front.
Right, the front, not the back. I see that. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so you're saying because of that, it shouldn't be a requirement here.
I'm just asking for the respectful consideration.
Yep. Okay, I just figured I wanted to know your position on what you were in favor of and what you weren't. So good thing I asked the question.
But uplighting, sure, if we want to enforce it, it's responsible to essentially maybe bird migration. But I mean, if you look at the elevation, the front elevation of the project, there's not a sizable amount of glazing. Most of it is going to be either siding, stucco, or stone. So I don't know, professionally and respectfully, I don't know if that condition is appropriate for bird.
Okay. So a good thing I brought up and asked what your position was on that, because typically, and I agree. I guess it was going to increases the cost of the project for this your clients. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Creamy or someone?
I have a further question, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Mr. Creamy, you're proposing permeable pavers on the driveway, but the driveway is a mutual driveway, is it not?
Through the center line, but from the rear main wall, from the rear main wall or midway of the deck, it's solely the responsibility of this property.
Right. So where are you proposing the pavers?
Reference site plan A0 dated 23/7/11, and it's gonna be the how can I put it?
The dark area.
Do you see the walkout where it says existing driveway and permeable pavers? So scroll down a little bit. That portion there. You see where it says permeable pavers and an existing driveway? So that portion where the mouse is right now, that's the permeable paver portion.
Okay. There's a different drawing than the one I'm looking at. Okay.
Oh, apologies about that. Previously, that portion was shown in asphalt.
Yes.
And that was the change after consultation.
So that's no longer going to be asphalt.
That portion where it says permeable pavers, no, that will now be permeable pavers. The rest, which is shown as existing driveway, will be in asphalt.
Okay, thanks.
Which is existing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other questions? No other questions. Is someone ready for a motion?
Sorry, what, so I understand your position on the windows. What about the dark sky compliant light fixtures? Are you okay with that?
That we could accept.
Okay. Okay, and sorry, if we want to tie this to a site plan to show the permeable pavers, sorry, what's the site plan reference? Because the one that I have doesn't show it.
There's a revised site plan that says no changes to variances dated August 25th.
Okay, oh, I see, got it. Okay, got it, got it. Okay, so I think I'd like to move approval then, subject to the planning condition with regards to dark sky compliant lighting and tying it to the revised site plan with regards to the permeable pavers. And I think that's it.
What about the condition
Okay.
to tie to plans from planning? The rear elevation?
Okay, I missed that. Hold on. Yes, sorry, that one as well. I missed that one, sorry. So the two planning conditions, sort of, or 1.5 planning conditions, if you will.
Well, there's 2, A, B, and then 3.
So 2B and 3.
But not the windows?
Okay, thank you.
Not the windows and not 1.
Okay, so 2A only and 3.
No, 2B only
Oh,
and
sorry,
3.
2B and 3. Thank you.
Seconder for Mr. Comoric's motion.
Sorry, just to clarify, as well as tying it to the site plan for the pavers.
Yep. The
Yeah,
August
so
one,
we can
the
add
August.
that wording for condition 2. Or we'll do a separate one for the pavers, yes.
Yep. Mr. Taylor,
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chair.
thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Okay, thank you. Mr. Greeny, you have your approval subject to those conditions. And we have now completed the morning session. Madam Secretary, would you like to return at 1:45 or
That's
2?
perfect, thank you. 1:45.
1:45? Okay. We'll see everyone back here at 1:45.
Thank you, everybody.